Welcome to Unit 2 of Section 2, the unit dedicated to marketing communication. Communication is an important component of marketing strategy, we know. And that's why in this unit we will answer to the question, how can we promote a destination through marketing communication? To answer to this question, we are going to explore the following topics: marketing communication, its definition and areas, the stages of a marketing communication process, how the branding of a tourism destination works, and the country of origin effect in place representation to foreign visitors. A small request before starting: be patient. This unit is quite dense and a little longer than the previous ones due to the fact that this topic is really huge and I needed some more slides to cover the main points of it. So now, are you ready? Let's begin. What do we mean by marketing communication? As usual, we start from definitions. From all three definitions, we discover that marketing communication, even before promoting a product, has the objective of governing business and market relationships, hence its strategic nature. From the first definition, we gain that marketing communication is a governing tool of relations with the market. In the second, we read that marketing communication represents a fundamental lever for the pursuit of defensible competitive advantage positions. And the third one reminds us that marketing communication channels focus on how businesses communicate a message to its desired market or to the market in general. More specifically, the objectives of marketing communication can be summarized as follows. The goals of marketing communication are to inform, to persuade, remind, but also to modify behavior as well as change demand patterns. Marketing communication is an essential tool at two levels of the MMP, the marketing management process. Do you remember? It can be a strategic tool, and in this case, we will have a communication more dedicated to the values of the brand, but it can also be a lever of the marketing mix, the P, promotion. And in this case, we will have communication that enhances the attributes of the offer. Both types of marketing communication are useful, both are important and synergistic for business development. By the way, if you've got any doubts on the MMP process, the marketing management process, have a look to the Unit 2 of Section 1, titled Marketing Logic and Planning. Marketing communication includes advertising, direct marketing, branding, packaging, but also online presence, printed materials, public relation activities and sales presentation, but again, sponsorships, corporate social responsibility, trade, such show appearances, and much more. The important thing is to clarify and to bear in mind the objective of your communication and the object of your message. Together with the receiver, the target, you address your communication and the effect you want to produce. On these aspects, you can find full detail in Unit 1 of Section 2, titled Communication Principles. Beyond the channels and tools that will be used to convey our marketing communication, there are some other aspects to be considered. The first is the logical sequence of decisions to make when planning a marketing communication process. We have 7 main steps, and each step implies a guiding or more than one guiding questions. Step 1 is about identifying your target audience. In this case, you might ask yourself, who do I turn to? Step 2 is about determining the objectives of your communication. In this case, you might ask yourself, what are my objectives in terms of business, but also in terms of communication, of course? What do I want to communicate? What reaction do I want to produce in my receiver? Step 3 is about designing your communication. Here, the key question might be, what form should the message have? That is the encoding process. With step 4, you decide about the channels you you want to use in your communication. So you might ask yourself, through which channels will I convey my message? Remember that each channel must be consistent with the type of receiver you want to reach. Step 5 is a financial one, treating the budget for your campaign. Here the questions are: how should I manage my resources? How much and how long to spend on a single channel? With step 6, you put in place a communication mix. That means that you have to decide on how to give coherence to the various releases in terms of channels, tools, or also editorial calendar. And with the other levers of your marketing mix, like the characteristics of your product, its price, and its distribution. Finally, step 7 is about the results of your communication. You might ask yourself in this case, how to measure the success of my campaign. This has to do with metrics, the expected return on the investment you did, and the feedback from your receiver. In addition to the steps of the marketing communication process, it is good to know that communication can be set up as part of your pull strategy, for example. And in this case, you will attract the consumer in a persuasive way. Or part of your push strategy. In this case, you will push the product, especially through promotional and discounting actions. Communication can also be above the line or below the line. In the first case, you will have a more traditional and mass approach, while in the second case, you will introduce innovative and sometimes disruptive elements, such as, for example, guerrilla marketing, buzz marketing, or gamification. By the way, we will talk about below-the-line techniques in Unit 3 of this Section 2, the unit titled Engaging Visitors. Finally, marketing communication tools can be digital, non-digital, or mixed. In all three situations, you have the possibility to be innovative and achieve the goal you set if you work with professionalism and creativity. Fine. We saw that marketing communication works both on products and on brands. That's why now it's the case to ask to ourselves how to brand a destination through marketing communication. The model we are going now to look at helps us answer the question. The TDC model, the Total Destination Communication model, represents the whole communicative action of the destination towards its receivers. In our example, we are talking about Florence and its marketing communication addressed to tourists. The graph on the right side of the slide represents two areas of responsibility. The one on the left, with the red hatching, is the destination area, while the one on the right with blue hatchings is the tourists area. The overall effort of the destination is inserted into a context, the environment, which in itself conditions the reception and decoding of the message by tourists. For its part, when the destination initiates communication, it does so by setting business objectives, which are included in a strategic vision of its development. This is the strategic management moment. To reach the tourist, the destination takes 3 logical steps. It identifies the distinctive traits of its territory. This is a personality. Through self-analysis, it then formulates an idea of brand identity that is consistent with its positioning on the market. It is the image that it wants to convey externally through communication. And finally, it transforms this image into coherent communication messages conveyed on the chosen channels, and also thanks to the visual identity, that is a set of visual elements of recognition of the destination, like for example logo, landmark and coordinated image. Once tourists have received the destination communication, they will have an image of it. That's the brand image. Brand image might also be influenced by non-planned aspects by the destination, such as dysfunctionalities in the communication channels or fake news. If the campaign was effective, brand identity and brand image will correspond. Otherwise, there will be dystonia. To know and measure it, the destination can monitor the progress of the campaign and the final outcome through research on tourists' brand awareness, their level of satisfaction, and their propensity to travel and spend their money on that destination. One last thing to remember: the destination must manage its brand identity, so also the brand image, over time, and this makes its TDC, its total destination communication, a continuous process. Here on the left, you have a summary of what we have seen so far on the TDC model. At this point of the unit, I think it's useful to say a few words on the visual identity, because it is an important component of the communication coding process, closely linked to the language of science. The visual identity of a destination is something that must produce a simple, immediate and recognizable, but also attractive and high-impact visual object, for instance, a logo. This is a result that is achieved after much reflection and through various professional skills. In general, an effective visual identity must be convincing in representing the culture and personality of the place, but also of its people. It must have a recognizable, clear name that is easy to memorize. It can contain logos and symbols like shapes, colors, faces, and also landmarks. And it can also feature a slogan that reinforces the promise of value that the destination makes to its visitors. All these elements must be consistent with the vision that the destination has of itself and its future, but also, at the same time, with the filters tourists will apply when decoding the message. In this slide, we have some examples of logos that represent in a more or less effective way the visual identity of a set of destinations. Since a destination, due to the variety and maturity, is often able to direct its offer to different market targets, the branding strategy also follows this evolution by dedicating a sub-brand to each offer cluster. Sub-brands play the role of modifying the structure of the message conveyed by the macro-territorial brand, the master brand, becoming bearers of a single characteristics of or association in order to reach specific targets and or niche tourist markets. This is the case of München in Germany, in the declination of its logo into 4 different sub-brands corresponding to 4 different types of visit experience of the city. The diversification strategy, that means dedicating a specific product or cluster of products to each segment served, is usually the way chosen by mature destinations, those that in fact have had enough time to build infrastructure, grow in size, and have adequate resources, services, and attractors to satisfy different typologies of customers. For the Romagna Riviera, located in Emilia-Romagna region, Italy, born in the 60s of last century, as a seaside destination with family-run accommodation structures, diversification was in the following decades a strategy of strong development, deseasonalization, and relaunch not only of the seacoast, but also of the hinterland. Thematic sub-brands representing the various product clusters have been developed from a regional master brand. Let's see some of them. In this slide we have offers for seaside tourism, represented by the blue logo, with bathing establishment diversified by type of service and atmosphere. Here we have offers for green and food and wine tourism in the hinterland, represented by the green logo, with slow food and wine and rural tourism in the internal territories of Romagna. Here we see offers for cultural tourism and cities of art, represented by the red logo, with a rich year-round calendar of events, performing arts, cultural and museum circuits, as well as proposals for educational tourism. And here we have offers for spa tourism, represented by the light blue logo, with proposals for tourism and wellness stays, also combined with locations for events and business tourism, mainly MICE sector, that is a meeting, incentive, conference and event sector. This slide shows the new master brand of the Emilia-Romagna region, which recalls the various provincial territories and the chosen slogan Emilia-Romagna, never-ending stories. With the next slides, we take the reasoning of marketing communication a step further. Marketing communication also works on the effects that the sender, in our case the destination, wants to produce on its receiver, for instance, tourists. To stimulate these effects, it is possible to work at 3 levels: rational, emotional, and action-driven. The rational level, which I call head, performs the function of explaining the object of communication and making the receiver aware of what we are talking about and proposing. The emotional level, which I call the belly, aims to arouse emotions and empathic, effective reactions in the receiver, for example, amusement, surprise, emotion, dream, evocation of memories, and many other emotions. This is a predominant component in pull communication, the persuasive communication, and in advertising in general. The third level is the action-driven one, and I call hands. Here, the objective is to invite or push the receiver to take an action. We might have, for instance, a call to action on the website, like click here and download, or leave us your email and you will gain immediately a discount. In this case, we might also use a slogan at the end of the story to invite the receiver to purchase our product. That's typical in promotional advertising, with, for example, hurry up, last piece is available. These 3 levels of stimulation cannot be missing in any marketing communication, but the order in which they are activated in the story and the type of reaction they elicit are specific. Cognitive psychologists, semiotic experts, and neurolinguists study the phases of the stimulus response mechanisms in the consumer when he or she is exposed to advertising. The diagram on the right shows some models. I would like to point out the AIDA model, which is not the lyrical opera by Giuseppe Verdi, but an acronym that stands for the 4 phases of stimuli in advertising. A. Attention. At the beginning of the story, something catchy must appear or happen. I. Interest. When a problem and its solution emerge in the story. D. Desire. When product attributes are valorized. And A. Action. When it comes to the moral of the story and the call to action. Make an experiment this evening on watching TV. And do some zapping from one spot to the other and try to identify these 4 phases. I think you will identify them. Telling the story of our destination, which is a very complex product, and making it attractive is therefore challenging and needs to be planned carefully, also taking into account what we've just said in this slide. So the effects we want to produce in the receiver. But stimuli are decided first of all having in mind who we have in front when communicating, so our receiver. Hence the question, does the storytelling of our destination change when the receivers are foreign tourists? The answer is yes, and it also depends on what is called the country of origin effect. That is the effect that the location of businesses and products in a certain place has on consumer behavior. Therefore, when branding a tourist destination through marketing communication, in addition to the social, demographic and behavioral characteristics of the target to which the destination is addressing, what must be taken into account is the country of origin effect, which works on perceptions and anticipated judgments. The principle underlining this concept is the principle of parsimony. That means that through a direct experience of a product or a visit to a given country, the consumer extends his or her perception. It is a synthetic associative mechanism which saves the consumer time and complexity of judgment. In the first case, the extension passes from the product to the country, while in the second case it passes from the country to its products. For Italy, the country of origin effect can be demonstrated with our Made in Italy products. If a foreign consumer tries a product coming from Italy without visiting it yet, by extension the consumer will think that Italy is also excellent in other fields and will be probably eager at buying other products and also visiting the country sooner or later. That is why the Made in Italy products are considered excellent ambassadors for the Italy brand. However, the synthesis is one thing and the stereotype another. This is a deliberately provocative postcard. It could represent what a foreign tourist expects or associates with Italy, the brand image he or she has got of this destination. Look at this postcard and try answering these three questions. What's right? What's wrong? Is there anything missing? It is the task of the DMO, the Destination Management Organization, or other relevant subjects to avoid excessive stereotyping in communication. Otherwise, the risk is to fuel prejudices, fuzzy expectations, and inadequate conduct among tourists when arriving at the destination. An interesting example of how to work on stereotypes is that of the communication campaign of the Expo 2015 held in Milan. In this case, the Ministry of Economic Development created an advertising spot entitled Italy, the Extraordinary Commonplace. The story offers a series of clichés that foreign people, including investors, usually associate with Italy. But for each one, a counter-proof is proposed showing the real excellencies of this country. Let's watch the video together. More recently, INIT, the Italian National Tourism Agency, based its campaign on Botticelli's Venus in a virtual influencer version. It is an attempt to associate some of the most popular destinations with an iconic figure, Venus and the Renaissance period, updating it to the contemporary world. She uses, in fact, a smartphone and goes on social media. Have a look to that, to the different versions and to the different highlights of this huge destination. We remain with Italy also in this last example, but this time the broadcaster is a Brazilian tour operator. As we can see, the selection of the Italian places and products respects the need for synthesis. The tourist, in the act of spreading a word of mouth, evokes Italy's attractors and symbols, while the slogan reinforces the message with the words, "You will only have beautiful things to tell about your holiday." So words and visual content brand the Italian destination as a place worth talking about and worth visiting. Fine, we are at the end of this dense unit, the unit on marketing communication. This slide wraps up the 4 main points we have seen: the definition, objectives, and strategic value of marketing communication, the 7 steps of a marketing communication process, and some aspects to consider when characterizing our communication, how destination branding works in communicative action, and why to consider the country of origin effect when communicating with foreign tourists. I hope you found interesting and useful the contents of this unit. Remember that in case you would like to get into more detail with the topics we covered, you can find a long and rich selection of further information materials on our INCULTUM platform. Thank you and see you on the next unit.